Hi, a warm welcome. I'm excited now to show you how to build desktop applications which have a graphical user interface. This is one of the most attractive areas because you get to build tangible programs which real users can use. So what you're looking at on my screen now is the first app that we will build throughout this series of videos. This is a currency converter app. It's quite minimal, but it does function very well. So we have two drop-down lists in here. You can choose between these three currencies, so the source currency and the target currency. Currently, there are only three currencies here, but you can easily add more and more. It just takes adding items to a Python list. And that's it. Then we have this input box here where the user can enter the value they want to convert. So in this case, they would want to convert 14 euros to US dollars. And this program will use the current rate, the current real-time rate. And if you press convert, it will show you that 14 euros is equal to 15 point something USD. The program gets the current rate from the xrate.com website using web scraping via Beautiful Soup. I will show you how everything is done throughout these videos. However, in this particular video, we will not work on the currency converter yet. I'll show you first how to use PyQt to make a more simple program, which is this one in here. So this is what we'll build in this video, because I don't want to go directly to the currency converter because it's a bit more advanced than this. This is a very simple one that will help you understand PyQt. PyQt is the library that is used to build this kind of desktop programs with graphical user interfaces. So what this is just a sentence maker. That's how I called it. You just write a sentence here, hi there, and you press on make and it capitalizes the first letter and then it puts a dot at the end of the sentence. So this is very simple. It's a standard input button output program. So you get to have to enter some inputs and you press the button will trigger an action. It will process that string and it will display it in this area here. So let's make this program in this video. You need to use your local IDE for this. A cloud-based IDE such as REPL will not work because you need to have access to your computer graphical user interface, to your operating system, which actually is the one that generates that graphical user interface. So on PyCharm, I have created an empty project directory and I'm going to create an empty file, Python file as well. Sentence maker, I'm going to name this .py. And then the first thing I'll do is I'll open the terminal and do pip install PyQt6. That's the current version of PyQt, so version 6. There have been different generations of PyQt, so 6 is the current generation. Once I have installed the library, I'm going to minimize the terminal and start coding. So from PyQt, I am going to access Qt6, which is a base class, and it has a series of classes which we need to import. Q application, Q widget, QV box layout, and there are some more. So I'm going to again say from pqt.qt_widgets import. You could also go ahead and add them here, but the line is getting too long, so it's a good practice to create a new line, so to have this sort of one column code style. So again, we need Q label and Q push button. I'll explain you what each of these are. We're actually going to use them. So it all starts by creating an app instance, which is equal to Q application. So that is the first class that we imported. This creates the application instance. But then you need another class, which is QWidget. This will be the actual window where you'll add all those widgets, the buttons, the text boxes, the labels, all the elements of your application. Both of these have to be instantiated, and this first one needs an argument, which could be an empty list. You could also enter here system arguments, which is a way to give arguments, special arguments to the application, which the application can use, but this is not the case. We don't need them here. That is a special scenario, so an empty list means no arguments. And then we initialize QWidget as well. And then you can access that variable and set a window title using that method. So let's say sentence maker. That will be the title of the window. Just as you see, my PyCharm has this title here. So that's the window of PyCharm. PyCharm is the application, so to say. The widget is the window, and the title is this one in here. Now let's see how this will look so far without adding any further elements. To be able to see this, we want to specifically say window.show. We need to use the show method, otherwise we will not see anything. And then we need to start the application using app.exec. So that app is this one in here. Yep, right click and run this program. And that's it. Sentence maker is the title of the app. And you see this default buttons here, which can close and minimize and maximize this window. Depending on your operating system, this window can look different from mine, so keep that in mind. And yep, let's start adding elements now. Widgets. So all the buttons, the text boxes, the labels are called widgets. And we add those widgets, actually, we add them on a layout object. So I'm going to make some space here, and the layout object can be created by this here. So I'm going to create a variable layout, which is equal to qv box layout. So we instantiate that. And the way this works now is that if you now create a new widget, for example, a text box, let's say text is equal to q line edit, that class, instantiate that, and then you say layout dot add widget, and you add that text widget, that variable which represents the input text box, and you add it to the layout. And then if you execute this, we're not going to see anything because the layout object is loose. It's not connected to the window object yet. So you need to connect the layout to the window object. Let's do it in here. Window set layout. This variable goes here. Now if I execute this again, we're gonna see a different view. So that's the text box we created with qline edit. And so the idea of the layout is that we used a QV layout, which means V stands for vertical. And that means if I add another input box there, and I run this, you're gonna see that the second input box is added under the first one because this is a vertical layout. So the widgets are added vertically. If you want, you could use a key H box layout here and then use it here as well. and then run, and you're going to see that the widgets are stacked horizontally this time. For our application, we want to add widgets vertically, so I'm going to undo the changes and keep QV box layout, QV box layout. So run again to see. Yeah, that's it. Now, let me delete that QLine edit widget and add here the next widget, which is going to be a button. So let's say the btn variable is equal to q push button. Give it a name, so the label that will show on top of the button. And then use layout.addWidget btn. We add that button to the layout widget, and then we add the layout to the window. And run it to see. Yeah, it's working well, but it doesn't do anything. So let's connect that button to some action. And here I would like to stop and explain you how PyQt works. So PyQt is made of widgets, signals, and slots. Let me explain you what that means. So we have a button widget, then we have this clicked signal, and then we have this method, and then we have a slot here. Make sentence. So that's a widget, that's the signal of the widget. So widgets have signals, which could be clicked or checked, etc. So if it's a button, then it might have a clicked signal, which means when the button is clicked, this slot will be triggered. What is a slot? A slot is a function that we need to create now. You can create these functions just under the import statements. So define make sentence. You can name this whatever you like, of course, but it has to reflect that name. And then here, what you want this function to do is, well, these functions actually will serve as procedures. They will not return anything. Their role is to just modify the widgets of the app. For example, in this case, what we want to have here is we want to extract the input text of the user, the text that the user enters in the input box, which is equal to text. Text is this variable, so which contains the QLine edit widget, and then we access the text method of that widget. That widget has a text method, so we get that and we store it in input text. And then what we can do with this input text now could be different things. We could write it in a label widget. So let's create a label widget. We have the button here, we connect the button to the slot, and then down here we have an output label widget, which is equal to q label, which we import in here. This needs to have an empty string as input. If you wanted to show something else, you could write it there, but we don't want to show anything initially when we display the application, the interface. So leave it empty and then add it to layout.addWidget output label. And then we access that output label from this make sentence function. And then from the slot here, we access output label, that widget, and we set its text using the setText method to input text dot capitalize, and we run. Hi there, make. You see H now is capitalized, so it's working. And of course, if you want to add a dot, you can just say plus dot, run it, hi there, make, and you have that dot at the end of the sentence. So that's our tiny app, which works, and I wanted to keep this simple so you understand how PyQt application works. So again, we have widgets, we have signals, and then we have slots, which don't return anything. Actually, they are just used to access the widgets and extract information from them as we did in here, and then put that information to some other widgets as it is here. And you could also process things in these functions, in these slots. So for example, we did some capitalization of the text in here, we added a dot. So you could also do that in here. That's capitalization, store it in a variable, and then provide the variable in here. Or you could also have another function which does the processing, and then you get that output of that normal function in here. But the slot itself should serve the purpose of interacting with the widgets. So with this knowledge, now we're ready to go ahead and create that currency converter app. Let's do that in the next video. See you.